Свят, свят, свят Господь Саваоф, исполн небо и земля слави Твоея.
U ovoj epizodi naše serije svedočanstava o Vladiki Artemiju imamo zadovoljstvo i veliku čast da čujemo jednog divnog svedoka, to je otac Viktor Potapov, starešina crkve svetog Jovana Krstitelja u Vašingtonu. On je načastvuje tom crkvom već 2,5 decenije. Otac Viktor je veliki misionar, on je urednik nekoliko časopisa, on je priredio brojne radio emisije, napisao brojne tekstove o veri pravoslavnoj, a jedno vreme je bio i savjetnik predsjednika Sjedinjenih Američkih Država Ronalda Reagana za verska pitanja. Otac Viktor je nama poznat po tome što je bio veliki prijatelj našeg blaženopočivšeg Vladike Artemija i bio je veliki prijatelj naše blaženopočivše također sestre u Hristu Kosare Gavrilović, koja je dok je živjela u Vašingtonu pohodila na svetim liturgijama tu svetinju kojoj je on bio starešina. 2 godine pre progona Vladike Artemija, Kosara Gavrilović je tada već živjela na Kosovu, pa se našla jedne prilike u Vašingtonu i otac je tražio da ona posle liturgije progovori koju reč o stanju na Kosovu i o stanju u Srpskoj pravoslavnoj crkvi. I taj njen, da kažem, govor pamtimo po tome što ona tada ispričala kako su vladike Amfilohije i Atanasije Jevtić postali kukavice i stavili se u službu interesa Bele kuće, da bi 2 godine kasnije zaista bili na čelu vojske koja je izvršila bratoubistvo nad Vladikom Artemijem, proteravši ga sa njegovog trona iz eparhije Raško-Prizrenske. Otuda će i našim gledalcima sigurno biti jasno kako to da se nakon prognanja Vladike Artemija za administratora eparhije Raško-Prizrenske u egzilu postavi prvo Atanasije, a potom Amfilohije. Oni su uspjeli da raspude to stado Hristovo koje je sabro, podigo i odgajio Vladika Artemije. I oni su, znači monaštvo, eparhije Raško-Prizrenske, oni koji su ostali verni svetosavlju i Hristu i Hristovom evanđelju, otišli za svojim duhovnim ocem u egzil. Eto, zahvaljujući dobroti Veljka Sikirice, koga smo imali prilike da upoznamo u jednoj od prvih epizoda ovoga serijala, imamo ovaj intervju sa ocem Viktorom, pastirom dobrim, i ja vam želim prijatno slušanje i gledanje ovog divnog učitelja pravoslavlja.
Honorable Father Viktor, dear Bačuška, thank you for this few minutes of your time. I know you're tired. Today has been Palm Sunday, and you were up all day, and we just joined you for Vespers, for evening service. And mainly what we would like to do, what we're doing, all the brotherhood or the spiritual children of Vladika Артемије, is to keep his memory. And I know how much love you have or had for Vladika Артемије, and that you were there with all of us during some very difficult years. Vladika Vladika's missions of peace to Washington, United States, trying to avoid the tragedy. And so that was the motive. I also remember that in '97, when me and my family, Miriam and the kids, we were going to Serbia, you said, well, since you're going to Serbia and on a pilgrimage, I suggest that as part of your spiritual building and growing, you meet and go and get the blessing of Vladika Артемије. And so we did, and as we did, and thank you very much for that. That's one of the things that I think we cherish together. And from those minutes, of course, immediately Vladika Артемије became our spiritual father, and until the very last days of his life. The same thing, there's so many things that we have in common, and one of them is that St. John of Shanghai brought you here to this parish. And the same thing with my family, mine, Miriam's families. Miriam's aunt, as you know, was his secretary in San Francisco, and in the tough days and the good days, and that's what basically we would like to, within this spirit, to hear some of your thoughts or memories regarding Vladika, what he was doing in Washington, what he was coming here, and second, of course, is about the faith, and him as a confessor. And then the third thing, the third question, if you can just some of your personal sort of simple human touches. I remember the joy whenever Vladika would come to the church. It was, everybody was so happy to see him, and it was authentic. Of course, in this community, which is Russian and Serbian, but Orthodox above everything. So thank you very much, and then I'll leave it up to you.
Well, Vladika Артемије, or Артемије, as you say in Serbian, was physically a man of small stature. He was small, he was like maybe 5 feet 4 or 5 inches, but he was a giant spiritually. He was some spiritual strength packed into a small body. And when he came on the scene, when he would appear anywhere, in a private home or in church, you could tell, even without seeing his panagia, that he was a prince of the church. He had a way of holding himself honorably, if you know what I mean. We met in the 90s, of course, when all the trouble began in the former Yugoslavia, and when the Albanian Kosovars were taking over Kosovo. And of course for Vladika Артемије, and for many Serbs, of course, for all the Serbs, Kosovo is not just a piece of real estate, not a piece of geography. It is a holy place. It's the cornerstone, the heart of Serbia, and it's hard to imagine Serbia without Kosovo. It's sort of like, for Russia, the Trinity Surges Lavra outside of Moscow. That was taken away from us, where people like Saints Sergius of Radonjić and Saint Nikan, his disciple, lived and prayed and blessed Prince Dmitry Natskoy to do battle with the Tatars and overcome the Mongol rule in Russia. So it's about the same for spiritually speaking. Vladika came to Washington on several occasions to lobby Congress on behalf of Kosovo. He was, of course, the Bishop of Kosovo. And I think that I was speaking about his spiritual stature. I think that comes from the fact that he was a disciple of Saint Justine Popovich. Saint Justine was, of course, a great giant of Orthodox spirituality of the 20th century, on par with Saint John of Shanghai and San Francisco. Saint John, I think, even knew Saint Justine, because Saint John, after the revolution, went to Serbia. He studied theology there in Belgrade, and he loved the Serbian people. He loved the Serbian church, and that's why throughout the decades of communism in Russia, the Rokor, the church abroad, was not recognized by many Orthodox churches, because the Russian Orthodox Church had a lot more influence, and we were uncompromising in our anti-communism. But the Serbian church, notwithstanding the fact that we were not in communion, Rokor was not in communion with some of the larger Orthodox churches, the Serbian church always kept the lines of communication and liturgical communication open. So we always cherish that, and to this day, for us, Serbia is a special place. So I accompanied Vladika on some of these lobbying missions, and we did some planning here in the church. He came to our church, prayed with us, and he blessed us to collect donations. Throughout America, people, the Serbs in particular, would send money to our parish, and then we would send this money to Vladika for his good works. When my second son was marrying, my daughter, Sonia, was marrying here in Washington. Vladika Артемије happened to be in Washington, and he came to her wedding, and that was an exciting thing, because suddenly in the place where we were holding the reception, Vladika came, and of course, as I said, when he entered the room, you could feel his princely stature. He was a small man, but he came in, suddenly the music stopped, and people rose, and we sang Ispoliaci Despota, as is customary for a bishop. And Vladika, I remember, he told us then that, oh, please continue to have a good time. This is a wedding, and you have to have a good time at a wedding. So that was very special too for our family, that our daughter and my son-in-law, who is now a priest here at St. John's, and they were blessed by Vladika Артемије. And then at the beginning of this century, we, thanks to your help, we were able to organize a pilgrimage to Serbia and to Kosovo, and of course I will never forget that, because what I remember particularly, not only meeting Vladika Артемијe, but being at Dečani, and I was given the honor of serving the Divine Liturgy in this, 14th, 15th century church, and I was, thankfully we were serving it in Czech Slavonic, and the monastic choir was singing. I was standing before the altar, in front of this altar that saints did the liturgy, and I felt such a small person. How can I have this honor? I was looking at the frescoes, and I was amazed that Kosovo survived, and this monastery survived after all these centuries. Muslims were not able to destroy it, and I mean, what a miracle that was. It's because of the perseverance of the Serbian people, the Serbian saints, people like Saint Justin, and Vladika Артемије. Vladika Артемије was uncompromising, as was his spiritual father, in keeping the purity of the Orthodox faith. And for him, defending the land of Kosovo was not just a political, it wasn't politics, it was a spiritual podrig, a spiritual struggle for him. And that's the way he was always, and that's the way he always discussed the issue of Kosovo. And he probably was not understood by politicians in this country. It's very difficult to explain to Western politicians the Orthodox spiritual way. It's very difficult. You have to understand Orthodoxy from within. It's very difficult when you're outside of the church to explain what we're all about, you know. So I think that was probably Vladika's, it wasn't his failure, and he tried his best. I think that even if one of the apostles came and tried to explain to US congressmen, they probably would fail as well. But so Vladika, it was an honor to know Vladika, and we were always very, very distressed that even he was misunderstood by his brothers also, unfortunately, and he was relieved of his position, he was relieved of his bishopric, and but he wasn't relieved of his spiritual life, his life of prayer, and I'm sure that the last years of his life he spent in deep prayer, in love for not only his friends, but for his enemies, for his opposition. So Vladika is a legend, I think, in many ways, and we will always remember him fondly.
Just, I don't want to interrupt you, but maybe we didn't share this with you before. Vladika was never subject to any canonic trial. And he insisted, he says, due process needs to be followed. And that was not done.
Probably because I think the people who were responsible for doing what they did to Vladika, they were pressured, I think, by politicians, because they thought that if they were able to get Vladika to compromise on the issue of Kosovo, then things would work out. But we know that, I mean, let's face it, in 1999, NATO bombed Belgrade on Easter Sunday, on Pascha.
A little girl, 3 years old, Milica, who is a symbol of all the suffering of the Serbian children from that aggression, she would be 23 years as of yesterday if she survived.
Yeah.
But the compromise, as you were saying, politics, and then understanding the spiritual inside of why Orthodoxy, Christianity is so important for us, was, I guess, one of the key things. Is there a midway? Is there a halfway? Can we compromise? What? How do you? One of the things is that
we can compromise in personal relationships, but relationships, I mean, but in issues of principle. I mean, Kosovo is an Orthodox Serbian land. It is the land drenched with the blood of people who defended this land, defended the Orthodox faith. So I cannot understand how you can compromise on that. I mean, of course, we can try to live next door to Muslims. I mean, that's possible. I mean, it's possible in the Holy Land, for example. It's possible in Russia, in
Serbia.
In Serbia as well. But for some reason, Kosovo, you see, Kosovo became like a magnet for radicals, and you can't compromise with radicals. You can't compromise with ISIS, for example. It's their way or the highway, so to speak. So I think Vladika's attempts were doomed to fail, but he had to try, of course. And now this is on the conscience of those people who made the decision not to listen to him, who made the decision to attack Serbia and to give Kosovo, tear Kosovo away from Serbia. But I think, I mean, I don't follow the news that closely right now, with Serbia, but I think to this day, even liberal Serbs understand that Kosovo is still part of the Serbian psyche. I mean, I'm Russian and I understand this. For me, it's easy to understand. I've never lived in Serbia, I never lived in Kosovo, but again, for us Russians, my wife's parents lived in Serbia. The Serbs showed the Russians great hospitality after the revolution of 1917. They lived in Serbia, in Belgrade, and other cities, and they all, St. John, of course, studied theology and lived in Serbia until he was chosen a bishop, and our Rokor survived in the West thanks to the Serbian Orthodox Church. And of course, Vladika Артемије knew all of these things, and he was very close to Rokor as well.
Is there a room for compromises regarding ecumenism? We're mentioning St. Justin Popović, we're mentioning Vladika, and I guess it's a message to all of us. Do we have different options? A light version, hard version, middle version, deluxe version, or the compromising version? Is what is the message? One of the things that Vladika was basically saying is, I bless my persecutors because they stick me close to the Lord. And about 50 monasteries flourished. People really wanting to follow that path, very narrow and very steep.
Well, in terms of faith, Vladika was uncompromising, as was his spiritual father. Ecumenism, for him, ecumenism was dialogue with others, but to explain what the original Christianity was all about. To introduce them to Christianity, not this kumbaya, sitting at the campfire and saying, your faith is fine, you may not believe in the Mother of God, you may not believe in the physical resurrection of Christ, you're okay, but we believe a little bit differently, we're all the same basically. No, for Vladika, no. It is the faith of the fathers. And that's where he was taught by that by Saint Justine, of course, the faith of the fathers. And Saint Justine wrote very powerful treatises about ecumenism. He explained where it went wrong and why the Orthodox cannot be in communion with people who don't believe in the ever Virgin Mary and thinks which is the regular woman, and in the bodily resurrection of Christ, or the fact that we commune not of bread and wine, but of the body and blood of Christ, and so on and so forth. There are so many things that separate us from Western Christianity, and we can see to this day that Western Christianity is deviating further and further and further away from that which was intended by the fathers of the church of the first centuries, by the apostles, by Christ himself. And Vladika was a champion of this uncompromising orthodoxy. Not orthodoxy light, but real orthodoxy, genuine orthodoxy.
So Saint John of Shanghai, Saint Vladimir Nikolai Velimirovich, Justin Popovich, probably we were blessed by Vladika Артемије to lead us and watch so that we do not deviate from that.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So Vladika was a confessor, and I think that he, as you said, he blessed his persecutors, his enemies, and he led a continued and died a prayerful life. And
he said, thank God and thank them to kick me out so that I could then dedicate my life
to prayer. Blessed are they, blessed are the persecuted, Christ said in the Beatitudes. Well, God give him rest, and may through his prayers, may God bless the Serbian people, and somehow, maybe it's hard to imagine, but bring Kosovo back to where it belongs.
His work on that front, as you were saying, it was very important, not because we want instant results as today. We all want things to happen in a few seconds, almost like a TV report. But they don't. In real life, they don't.
It's called instant gratification.
Instant gratification, or heroin culture.
Yeah.
And he did not, but definitely it did hold the history back. What was supposed to happen when the bishop had to be removed politically from Kosovo, the non-cooperative bishop, and this whole farce, which was prepared a long time before it was executed, did hold back the events that we have seen. No conclusion. In other words, whatever independence was declared, etc., never came to fruition. And indeed, it was part of the work of all the good people here in Washington that could understand the authentic interest and the meaning, at least to whatever level, of what Kosovo is for Serbian and Serbian people, and that they really gave the sufficient support to Vladika's many visits to hold back the time of history. And I believe that in that regard we all can be very happy and consider his work, as you were saying, well, political or spiritual political work, as a success and not a failure, because it didn't happen yet. You know, Kosovo continues to be more so the very heart of the Serbian people and faith and so on.
Well,
Bačuška, what can I say? Thank you so much.
You're welcome, and
we
will see this somewhere.
We will wait for you. We will wait for you to go together to visit.
She needs to come this time.
Yeah,
Vladika's absolutely.
You know, I was talking to Veliko today, and Vladika Артемије remind me of Saint Nectari Pentapolski,
Oh, yeah.
who was also persecuted.
Oh, did you see the movie?
Yeah, we saw the movie. We were at the
Movie is
premiere in
absolutely
Belgium.
amazing.
Yeah, I think is it on Netflix now or not? I'd love to see it.
It's a very good movie.
I would like to. I was weeping all the entire movie.
Yeah.
It was amazing. And Vladika Артемије, you said that he's a confessor, but I think he's a mučenik, he's a martyr.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's a martyr like Saint Nectari was. And Saint Nectari was blessing his enemies. He was praying for them.
Yeah.
And Vladika Артемије was doing the same thing. He's amazing. I remember when he was coming, and Vladika, Vasily, Radianka, they loved to meet and be together and like brothers, you know. Because Vladika Vasily, he also is from Serbia. He grew up there. He went to St. John, was his teacher on the law of God when he was a little kid. Influenced him to dedicate his life to God and people. And he had a lot in common also with Vladika Артемије.
He served the Serbian church a lot.
Yes, he was defending the church in Serbia, and that's why he was committed and was taken in a labor camp. He was speaking out against
Tito. Tito.
Not the живоцерковники.
Against the renovation.
Because they were trying to destroy the church from inside. And he was, and they had a lot in common with Vladika Артемије. And it was nice to witness them to be together, to talk, and they enjoy each other. Do you remember?
Oh, absolutely.
We have pictures of them together.
Absolutely.
Well, and again, when you came to Sonia and Father Alexander's wedding, it was a big event. And we have that on video.
Probably.
You should get this piece.
Yes,
because he said few words, but very, he did not interrupt the wedding at all. He
walking.
He, instead of, it was not interruption, it was a blessing for them and for their life and for everybody else.
Exactly.
It was an honor. It was an honor. And well, I strongly believe that Vladika Артемије is how do you say it in English? He is being прославлен на небесах. He's glorified in the kingdom of heaven with all the saints. He's together with Saint Justine, Saint Nikolai Velimirovich. They're all together there. And he is a saint. I'm sorry, I dare to say that. He was persecuted for the truth. And he was defending the church. And I'm sorry, but the same thing is happening today in the world between Ukraine and Russia. This is the same thing. The Western world, the godless regime of the Western world is attacking the Orthodox Church. And they try to destroy the church in Ukraine, they try to destroy the church in Russia, and this is terrible. This is persecution. This is a real persecution, so-called democracy. Okay? It's godless regime. Terrible. And Vladika Артемије was persecuted. They defrocked him.
Yes.
He was totally defrocked.
Completely. But definitely what happened is that all the monks, everybody followed him. So,
He's on his monastery.
Yes. He basically, about 50 monasteries flourished. And I remember they were also calling him that, he has, abandoned the church, etc., etc. And I remember Father Victor, when in those days, when Vladika was visiting here, it was still the Zarubezhna church did not rejoin the mother church.
But I have them in my archives. And,
It'd be interesting to find out.
It was in the 90s.
It was interesting, and I remember that he was always encouraging. He was.
He even came to the Voice of America downtown.
Yes, and he was encouraging that it has to happen. It has to heal. In other words, he was not looking for separating people or the church, or any schismatic actions. But on the contrary, I think he was.
No, he and I remember Patriarch Pavlov when he came to Washington. and I was invited to a reception, and I was sitting to the left of Vladika, the patriarch, and of course I couldn't miss the opportunity to ask him, that we're beginning these bilateral conversations with the Moscow Patriarchate about reunification, and what should we do, I asked him, and I remember he said, well, do you remember the parable of the prodigal son? And he said, we always tend to forget about the older son who never left the father. And when the prodigal son came back, after losing all of the money that he inherited and leading a desperate life in a faraway country, the older son was resentful that the father received his son back. And he said, in your conversations with the Moscow Patriarchate, don't take on the role of the older son. And I remember that really impressed me, Of course, Patriarch Pavel was a saintly man also. And the first thing I did, I sent, I think, an email, or I called our bishops. I said, this is what Saint Vladika Pavel told me, and I passed it on. I even think I wrote it down someplace. But so you can see that people like Vladika Артемије, as well as Patriarch Pavel, also played a very important. And of course, at the Sabor, this council in San Francisco, where the decision was made for unification in 2006, Metropolitan Amfilochi came from Montenegro, Chernogoria, and he gave a wonderful speech, and he also played a very important role in our making this decision. So it was good. The Serbs were good to us, and I hope the Russians were good.
Did he persecute Vladika Артемије? He was one of the persecutors?
I'm not sure. Was he?
Yes.
Yeah.
It really bothers me.
And they were roommates.
Um,
They were roommates.
as they say in
It's terrible.
Greece,
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
And how about the other one who became a bishop?
Oh,
And he was
Theodosi.
and he also persecuted Vladika Артемијe, yes?
Well, there was no canonic really process.
That everything was uncanonical.
Everything, but
Totally.
I believe, and you will correct me, Father Victor, that when these things happen and somebody sits on the throne of a bishop who has been removed arbitrarily, that is like preljuba. How do you call it in English?
Like what?
Like preljuba, like when
Adultery.
huh?
Adultery.
Adultery.
Oh, like прелюбодеяние.
Yeah. Because you're sitting, in the house of somebody who is still there in life, and that is
It's highway robbery, like.
highway robbery, and that in itself is something which.
Yeah, I forgot that Amfilochi. Well,
No, but this is Theodosia we're talking about.
Theodosi, yeah.
Amfilochi, of course, I don't want to spend too much time on him, but it was they wanted Vladika to repent.
Of what?
Or what? And he said, well, no, let's, because of the church, let's do the process, the due process. What am I guilty of? And unfortunately, he was the same one that signed the request for a civil trial of Vladika regarding whatever.
Civil trial.
Yeah. So I would not be able to sign anything if it's your brother. It's
Well, St. John Shanghai was also
yeah.
taken to court by bishops.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
unfortunately. Not all the bishops, but some.
That's what I was saying. As aunt was with him and family all along in those tough days.
On what ground they defrocked you?
Because of the Kosovo politics.
What is it a ground? It's a reason to defrock?
Well, he was, you know, as they call it, he was not obedient in terms of you know, sort of following.
He was obedient to Christ.
He was supposed to be there in just sort of don't talk, don't do anything, and you know, wait for your time to die, which of course he couldn't, because all the people, all the followers, everybody who is really truly in faith, you know, they just could not.